think this is a good time to get started. So hello, everyone. My name is Indira Gutierrez. I'm a senior software engineer, and we're here today with a talk from Michelle Gomez. She's the Latina career and life coach, speaker, and author of On YourBrilliance, Overcoming Imposter Syndrome for Career Success. Um, she has earned a bachelor's degree in business management and a master's degree in business administration. She has over 21 years of experience learning, navigating, and overcoming obstacles that plague women in the corporate environment. She's passionate about helping other Latinas achieve their professional and personal goals. She leverages her expertise in executive presence, professional communication, personal branding, leadership quality, and negotiation methods to empower Latinas towards their personal and professional goals. As a working mom, she has a full-time job and also is building her life coaching business on the side. So she helps other working moms as well build a plan for work-life design that incorporates their career ambition and conscious parenting through inner feminine healing. She also launched recently a new area of her life coaching practice called Healed Hijas, a program focused on helping adult daughters heal their Latina mother wounds. And with that, Michelle, go ahead.
Thank you, Indira. I appreciate it. Gosh, I see already almost 30 people. Thank you all for joining us. Well, over 48, for almost 50 people. My goodness. Thank you all for joining us and being willing and open to explore this conversation because it's something that we have to talk about. It does impact a majority of Latina women in the corporate space or in the business space as we continue to elevate in our ambitions. But it's also really important for the men who experience their own version of Marianismo or can have possibly, without knowing, contributed to the experience of Marianismo or the projection of Marianismo onto the women you in your families or the women you work with. So again, my name is Michelle Gomez. I am an author, speaker, life and career coach. And overcoming Marianismo and elevating your career is a topic that we have discussed more and more, especially this year. So let me explain a little bit more about what this is. We can go to the next slide, please. So we want to be able to put more Latinas in positions of power and influence. Why is that so important? I wanted to share why it's important to put you in more positions of power and influence. Currently, the Latina wage gap is 46%, meaning that white men doing the same jobs that Latinas are doing with the same level of education and background are being paid 46% more in a wage than Latina women are. So you can just imagine what you would do with an extra 46% of an income, how much more good you can do for your life and the people in your life. So let's start there. But also, the reason why we need more Latinos in the boardroom, we need more Latinos in positions of leadership to help lead the charge in organizations is because of the power of the Latino consumer dollar. So the Latino consumer is the key to success in the global economy. In 2020 alone, Morgan Stanley predicted that the Hispanic consumer would contribute a total of $1.5 trillion in buying power. That's up 212% from a decade ago. So according to the studies, all the way down to the University of Georgia, if you are a market looking to grow your brand, or you're trying to get your product or service to take part in that $1.5 trillion of consumer goods, then you need Latinos, you need Hispanics in your boardrooms, you need Hispanics in your creative spaces, you need Latinos to be a part of those discussions. Spanish is the most commonly spoken language around the world. And so therefore, having more Latinos in positions of power and influence will not only elevate your career, but help an employer, a company, a service, a product, really tap into that $1.5 trillion in consumer goods. So we're talking about corporate boards, the NPO space, or nonprofit, management positions, communications and marketing. Nobody knows how to connect to the Latino consumer, to think about how the Latino spends their money, spends their time, the things that keep them up at night, like another Latino. And so this is why we need to get over whatever hurdle we have facing us so that we can use our superpowers in Latinidad to elevate our career. And Marianismo, unfortunately, is one of the areas that most commonly I face with my clients. As I work with the majority of Latinas, we deal with so many cultural issues that keep Latinas down, that keep us small, that keep us when what we consider to be safe and more aware of what everybody wants us to be doing versus what we actually want to do. So we want, and also consumer facing roles, meaning yes, customer service or product development, getting out into the community and seeing what products and services are needed. So that way you can continuously improve the possibility for organizations to take part in that $1.5 trillion spend. Next slide, please. So why some Latinas avoid career power moves and negotiating or advocating for higher pay? So we're going to talk about a little bit of cultural implications around success, right? Excuse me. Cultural implications around success. Now, Marianismo does tend to have some sense of, we shouldn't be too ambitious. We should focus on the family. We should focus on just being happy with what we get. Don't push, don't be greedy, don't be money hungry. So a lot of these cultural implications on women of color, Latinas, on being la niña buena, what mama and abuelita said when we were little, ser la niña buena, no, be grateful, be gracious, just always say thank you, don't say no. All of these things that we were taught really contribute to why it's difficult for us to advocate for higher pay. But then you have traditional messaging around money. If you were raised in a family where money was perceived as evil, or like you shouldn't have money, or a lot of money will only create problems, then you're wanting to be the first person in your family to possibly create generational wealth might come with some cultural implications. You're concerned about how it's going to make you look in front of the family, how the family is going to perceive you now that you are financially secure, or maybe you're making six figures, you're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore. And that those sort of pressures can really throw you off course when you have an opportunity to push for higher pay, more money for your time, talent, and services. Now, we talk a little bit in Marianismo about ambition and femininity. Now, this has been something that a lot of our generational ancestors, our parents, our tías, abuelitos have told us, like, you need to be about the family, y la familia, and, you need to get married and have kids. And, a lot of times people don't understand why you want to go to school, why you want to open that business, why you want to get that degree or go for that really important job, move across town, leave state, to go pursue some professional or educational ambition that you have. And the idea is that women, the messaging that we get verbally and non-verbally is that it's just not safe for us to pursue those things because we're going to lose our femininity. Well, who's going to marry you if you're so ambitious? And, what about starting a family? And we're so bogged down by these projections and expectations of what femininity should be like, that it's somehow like we can't be ambitious and feminine at the same time. And so I'm here to tell you, you absolutely can. I see my clients do it all the time. It's something that we've embodied and mastered. And so I want to share it with you. If you're concerned about, well, who am I going to upset? And what about the expectations and projections onto me? And I'm going to let people down because of my ambitions. I want to be able to kind of help relieve some of that pressure. So we're going to talk a little bit about machismo, Marianismo, and how colonization all play a role in this, right? So let's go to the next slide. So what is Marianismo? And if you may have heard this phrase before, but what it is, by the American Psychological Association, they defined it as, in many Latin American or Hispanic cultures, an idealized traditional feminine gender role characterized by submissiveness, selflessness, chastity, hyperfemininity, and an acceptance of machismo in males. So although clearly derived from traditional ideals of the Virgin Mary, Marianismo is not to be confused with a specific religious background, right? So Virgin Mary represents a clear ideological being that supports the idea of Marianismo. We'll look at the Virgin Mary. She's pure, and she is about other people, and she's not worried about her own selfish ambitions, and so you should be more like her. And so these sort of narratives get really plugged into our brains, and then we come out into this Anglo-Saxon world where middle-aged white men are making most of the decisions, have access to most of the resources, and we don't know how to position ourselves for success because we have these ideologies sitting behind us. So if Latinas do not challenge this internal narrative, expectations, projections, traditions, familial teachings, we tend to accept things like lesser positions of power in your career, lesser pay, accept that only a male voice should have an opinion or a decision-making power or have a leadership position, that's the only acceptable way, accept that we are the lesser gender, and tone down our ambition. And this is why we need to be able to overcome those things so that you can be the voice that needs to speak up, be the powerful woman that you need to be in the boardroom. Let people see how my owning my voice and my not succumbing to Marianismo, machismo, or all these colonized ideologies about what an ambitious Latina should be, then you get to play into your Latinidad as a superpower, connecting these organizations to that $1.5 trillion consumer spend. So let's go to the next slide. So now that you know more about what Marianismo is, you probably have an idea where you could have sensed this. This is stuff that maybe our moms said to us, our abuelitas, our tias, the comadres. You might have seen it amongst your friends who have accepted the role, accepted that, hey, I'm just going to stay at home, or I'm just going to take the part-time job. I just support my husband. And everyone is allowed to have their own path. And this is not about judging another person, but not judging yourself is what we want to get through. Not judging yourself for wanting more, wanting to have more, wanting to be more. If you have a desire burning in your gut to get out there and be a face of change, be the voice of influence, be able to set to help close that 46% Latina wage gap because you decided not to take the first offer, or you decided not to get paid less, then this is the work we have to do to get there. So some steps to overcome Marianismo. Here's what you can do. I'm giving you some journal prompts that you can take with you to help figure out how has this impacted your journey specifically. So I ask you, call out the Marianismo rhetoric in your personal and professional life. Where have you received? And for those who maybe, well, Marianismo, I don't know. Have I ever experienced it? Marianismo is just the Spanish word for misogyny. So if you've been maybe on the receiving end of the good old boys club at work, or amongst a group that you associate with, where it's like the guys are the ones that take over the conversation, the men don't really give you a seat at the table, then it's the same thing. The same reason why you don't speak up in those spaces is the same way that Marianismo shows up. So where do you feel that you have sensed this? Like, is it okay for me to speak up? Well, no, the guys are talking. Well, I want more. I don't really want that job, but I don't want to be ungrateful, so I'll take it. I don't want to take that project, but I don't want to come off difficult, so I'll just do it. It's the constant self-betrayal to please others, right? So ask yourself, where have you experienced that? Now decide with intention what will or you will not allow to be a part of your adult story. Because in order to shed intergenerational narratives, you have to take back your power and really create your own identity. A lot of us were raised in homes where we had to be the extension of our parents. How many of you remember your parents being praised because you were a good little girl? Ay, mira qué bien comportadita la niña. Ay, mira qué buena la niña. No. Ay, qué bien educadita la niña. Why? Because maybe we did all our chores, we kept quiet, we spoke when spoken to, we dressed a certain way, we didn't rock the boat, right? So our parents were praised for our sort of robotic, niña buena behavior, right? And we were even praised. Maybe we got, oh, mira qué bonita la niña, qué bien comportadita que eres, ay, qué niña buena. And that feels good, right? As a child, to be validated and affirmed by adults, like, I'm a good girl. Yeah, I am a good girl. And that might have been the way that we had to be in mom and dad's house growing up, so that we could survive and navigate the environment. But when we grow up, that good girl, niña buenas, don't speak when spoken to, doesn't get us the higher paying jobs, doesn't get us the powerful opportunities, doesn't get our voice heard. Our opinions don't matter if we don't know how to break away from those molds. So I ask you to decide with intention, what will and will not be a part of your adult story? What are you willing to do? What needs to now shed in order for you to have your own identity apart from this, niña buena mentality? And then I ask you to address your relationship with success and abundance. Rewrite it for yourself. Why does money have to be wrong? Why do you having power and you having a position that you love to do, you love working in this role, or you love this business, you love this project that you're a part of? What's wrong with that? It doesn't always have to be about cooking and cleaning and everything. Those are all things that you can enjoy still, but it doesn't take away from your femininity because you have an ambition outside of the home, or because you're not afraid to be the only woman amongst a group of men, and you're not concerned about offending people, because now you get to decide, no, I'm worthy of success. I am worthy of abundance. You give me a 6-figure income, I will show you what I can do. I can change the world of the people around me, because those of us who came from raised in extreme poverty, or raised in homes where, money was scarce, then you can be afraid of money. You could be afraid of what it means. And maybe you're afraid that it's going to go away somehow and that you can't be trusted with it. So I ask you to address your relationship with success and abundance. Success and abundance can be safe with you. Success and abundance doesn't make you a materialistic person. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you less Latina. It doesn't make you less of a woman. It actually empowers all of the beautiful things about our culture when you put resource behind it. The wonderful thing about Latinos is there's some natural things about us that we don't have to work hard to be. We're simpáticos. We have a warmth. Somos bien confianza. Tenemos confianza. We know how to establish confianza. This is why we're such great networkers, because we know what it's like to be in big families. We know what it's like to visit and be around multiple dynamics of people. We know what it's like back before there were contracts, how to make arrangements and agreements with just a handshake. So use these gifts that your culture has given you, and instead of seeing them as a roadblock of why you need to stay la niña buena in order to be acceptable, I ask you to address your relationship with success and abundance and rewrite it for yourself. Now, I also ask you, I'm gonna call on my homie Nipsey Hussle. May he rest. But Nipsey said, circle got smaller, everybody can't go. And I mentioned this in my book, Own Your Brilliance. When you decide to level up, when you decide to step away from the status quo and decide to have your own identity, change your narrative, open yourself to success and abundance. You don't want to be like your friends or maybe even your family that are constantly struggling, always complaining. It's never enough. It's always something bad going on. You might need to reevaluate who you're spending your time with, because just as much as you're responsible for the energy you put out, you're also responsible for the energy that you allow in. So I ask you to surround yourself with women who embody the boldness, the courage, and the unapologetic femininity that you desire for yourself. They're out there. And I love this about the Latina community and entrepreneurial space here in Southern California. There are so many hermanas out here doing it big. And as soon as they see a new face, they're very good about gravitating to you and welcoming you and sharing resources and ideas, because they know what it was like to start from the bottom. So there are other women that are just a few steps ahead of you, And I implore you to surround yourself with people like that, you know, and be able to feed off of that, because it doesn't have to be you're a niña buena or you're a niña mala. You can say, no, I'm a very good woman. I'm a Latina. I am financially secure. I believe that I am worthy of success that I have obtained and that I seek to obtain. And I'm still going to be a great wife, a great mom, a great sister, friend, and daughter. It doesn't have to be different. It could be one and the same if you're willing to stand in your own identity. And finally, open up your path to success and overcome your fear and self-doubt with a morning power routine. This isn't anything new. I'm sure you guys have heard this with tons of people. Mel Robbins, Tony Robbins, Oprah. Everyone talks about the morning power hour. And I used to think it was a crock too. I used to think like, oh, who has that kind of time? You have that kind of time. Even if it's 10 minutes in the morning, affirmations, meditation, journaling. Start with a gratitude journal. Wake up in the morning and write down 5 things you're grateful for. That elevates your vibration. It really does. And when you elevate your vibration like that, you open the flow of abundance. You actually start your day with the intention that I expect good things to come to me today, and I can't wait to see what it is. That level of expectation that you put out energetically is so powerful. So it's a couple of minutes in the morning. If you like to read, read. If you like to listen to something audible that encourages you, listen to something. If you like to run and listen to a podcast that's encouraging, but take the time to set the intention for your day every day. We do it already with like the weather app, right? If you don't just get up and put on t-shirt and shorts and flip-flops and walk outside without checking the app. You're like, is it going to snow today? Is it going to be raining? Is it foggy? Like, is it cold? We do our due diligence. Like, well, let me just dress appropriately. But yet we don't take the same measures to manage our energy and the energy that we're calling into our day. We get up and we just brush our teeth, we get dressed, we have our coffee and we jump on the computer and like, well, let's see what the day has for me today. No, I encourage you to say no. Before I even answer an email, look at my social media, check my text messages. I decide that today I'm going to have a good day. I decide that today I'm going to be enough. I decide that today I expect good things to come to me, new opportunities, the right people, the right connections for me in my path right now. And be able to set that intention every day. I'm telling you, it works wonders. I'll ask my clients who have elevated their vibration. I mean, they already have, my clients are brilliant. They're PhDs. They're people who work on Capitol Hill, attorneys. These are brilliant people already, right? But yet their vibration was low. So it felt like there's not enough opportunity. There's not enough going on, So I definitely see the difference in the more opportunities coming their way, more offers, more asks of them, more visibility. They're getting asked to be speaking on panels and come here. We'd like to interview on this and come speak on this. Like they're attracting so much more visibility and opportunity simply because they've elevated their vibration. So I really implore you to do that. It's not going to be a waste of your time. And like I said, one of the books that I'm a big book reader. One of the books that I loved was Success Principles by oh gosh, I forgot it's his name. Jack Canfield. He created the series Chicken Soup for the Soul. He has a big, thick book called Success Principles. And he even says how affirmations have elevated his career. And his favorite is, I believe that God and his infinite universe are conspiring to do me good today, and I can't wait to see what it is. So when you start your day with an expectation of good things coming for you, life has a beautiful way of responding in kind. So I wanted to add those. These are things that you can do every day. You can start doing now to start overcoming those Marianismo type mentality, those narratives that are plaguing you every day, that are keeping you small, so that you can change the direction of your career and elevate your vibration in the same time. Next slide, please. So why does this need to happen? Because we need you. We need you in these positions. We need your voice. We need your face. It starts with you. When you go in and negotiate for higher pay, when you go in and you negotiate for more power, when you say, no, this stops here, you contribute to those who are saying no more 47% Latino wage gap. And when you go in and you become the first, you get to open the door for other Latinas coming behind you, because now you've set the tone. So having more Latinas in positions of power can facilitate entry points for other women entering the workforce. It can provide necessary guidance and mentoring for up-and-coming Latinas, professionals, to be successful as well. Our Anglo brothers and sisters have been doing this for years. They come in and then they make it easy for somebody else to come in. Why? Because they open the door, they mentor, they tell you, here's how you do it. So you can do the same. You capitalize on the need for biculturalism and gender equality in a global economy. Again, that $1.5 trillion Latino consumer spend. That biculturalism and gender equality starts with you. And then you get to change the impact of cultural and gender equality implications on future generations. So it's no longer like, it should, at some point, we shouldn't have to have discussions. It should be obvious that there's going to be more women of color, more people of color, more women in positions of power and influence. So it may be a tough road for those of us who have to be the first, but we do this for our purpose and the purpose of the generations that follow behind us. And we can do this every day, even now. I mean, I know this is a Latino focused event, but I'm speaking at another huge event on Monday. And before I accepted, I asked, what is the diversity level of the panelists and the other speakers? Are people of color represented? Are women represented? Is the LGBTQ community represented? I will not accept, if it's an outside of a Latino event, I make sure that I'm not the only Latina. I don't want to be the token Latina on in the panel. And I know plenty of other speakers. So if you're looking for speakers, I'll get them for you. You know, I just need to know that you're doing your part to make this diverse. So you can do the same. You can have that sort of ask of what's going on, you know, like, how are we doing? It's not just me, right? There's other people that look like me that are going to be a part of this. So you can be that part of that change. Next slide, please. This is my book, Own Your Brilliance. It's on paperback. It's on Kindle as well via Amazon, or you can go to my website and download a free copy. I also give a free ebook copy for those who would like it, but it's an international bestseller, Overcome Imposter Syndrome for Career Success. I talk about Marianismo in the book as well, but yeah, imposter syndrome is something that does plague a lot of Latinas in the corporate space and business, because there's just not a lot of us ahead of us that set the tone and made it normal, you know? So we come into these, when we finally get into those roles, we in the boardroom, our face is plastered in these discussions. It's like, am I supposed to be here? It's like you're crashing the party. That imposter syndrome starts to show up, telling you like you're not enough. No, you're not the right color. You're not the right age. You're not the right gender. So I've had to deal with this in my own career. And so now I help people do the same with my book. So feel free to grab a free ebook copy or go to Amazon and get a copy from there. Next slide. Here's my website. Feel free where you can go on there. I also offer complimentary 30-minute coaching sessions. So if you'd like to schedule some time with me, you can do that on my website. Otherwise, follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Instagram is where I spend most of my time. So if you guys want to connect with me, that's my my handle on Instagram. And that's it for me. Any questions?
Everyone is loving the session on the chat. Everyone agreed on we need to be the good girls and stuff like that. Everyone has had that experience. So we have a question here, and Melissa is asking, how do you overcome bias?
Bias?
Give me a second. It's scrolling me. How do you recommend we overcome bias? Yeah.
It's kind of a vague question. So bias on what? Did she elaborate?
No. So can you elaborate, or do you want to help in and we can allow you in?
If there's a bias against women, if there's a bias against Latinos, From my experience, the best way to overcome that is to do your part to make your success and your power visible. What I mean is that a lot of us as Latinas, we're taught to be very humble, don't bring attention to all the good things we do, right? Marianismo, like, no, we keep it to ourselves because it's this fear of coming off as we're being arrogant or proud, right? As if being proud of yourself is wrong, but really it's okay to call attention to the things that you're doing. And it's okay to start to plant the seed, right? Because a lot of times if you don't plant a seed to change the mentality about our culture or our gender, then they will essentially go with the bias because we're staying quiet. Well, she hasn't asked for promotion. So I would just imagine, because she's a woman, she doesn't want one. She probably doesn't want to be pulled away from her home and her kids, right? And assuming that she's a mom or she's married, right? Mm-hmm. Or like, she seems to be happy with her pay because she hasn't complained. So, I mean, why would we offer a 12% pay increase if she's not really complaining? So sometimes the silence adds to the bias. So one way that I kind of help people get over the fear of talking about themselves is a wrap-up email. If you could wrap up at the end of on your Fridays, a quick little synopsis email to your director, your manager, your supervisor, whoever, saying, FYI, as we end the week, here's a few things that I'm working on and the progress on those projects. Here's the deadline. I expect to have this completed before the deadline and under budget, just to kind of give them visibility on what you're doing, and then schedule what's called a career conversation. Schedule a career conversation with your manager once a month or so, just to kind of plant the seed of what you want. Be able to state, this is what I'm looking for in my career. This is the things that I want for myself, your personal goals, your professional goals, your financial goals. So that way they don't just assume that they know what you want and push you into that bias.
Yeah, I agree with you. If we don't ask, they're not going to know what we're looking for.
Right?
Yeah.
you have not because you ask not.
So Gary's asking another question. What advice do you have about this conversation with parents? I feel like this should also be done at homes as well. Like, how do we have this conversation about Marianismo and our parents' expectations of us?
Well, that's part of the journey that we have to do as healed hijas. We do this in our Facebook group. I work with a lot of Latinas that are dealing with the difficult relationship with their mothers, right? A lot of trauma and toxicity in relationships. But here's what I would say first and foremost. Our parents didn't have access to the things that we have: webinars, online therapy, life coaches. All this stuff requires access, money to be able to access some of this stuff, right? And so they use this colonized way of thinking of like, we have to keep our daughter safe. We have to keep her innocence safe in a way, like we have to keep her from herself, because if she figures out, that she's capable of all these things, she might just go buck wild, and then, we lose her, and so the expectation is, how do we have these conversations without hurting their feelings? And I don't know that they will understand you. There's a lot of parents that are like, see, mija, go, do it. Do what you got to do. I support you. And there are others that just don't get it. And to be perfectly honest with you, we just have to be okay with them not getting it. We don't have to understand their journey and the decisions they made. They don't have to understand ours, but we can respect one another. You're welcome to share, like, here's what I've discovered about myself, and this is the identity I want to have for me. It doesn't change what I think you tried to pour into me. And I appreciate that, you thought you were teaching me the right way, but this niña buena mentality of Marianismo that's been projected onto me is not serving me in this Anglo-Saxon world where I have to grasp for these opportunities. And it's going to take for me being bolder than I was taught to be.
Yeah. Brittany also commented that we have to be okay with them not getting it. It took her 7 years to realize that.
Yeah, it's okay. And that's part of it too. As daughters, we were taught that, we need their approval and we need their consent. And, we don't want to bring shame to them, but you're not bringing shame to them. Absolutely not. You wanting to be ambitious and travel the world and make good money and invoke change and, you know, put something creative out there. You're not bringing shame to them. You're creating a legacy for yourself, you know, and we're all responsible for our own healing journeys. And if they never got around to healing and they're projecting their ego and expectations onto you, that is something that they have to take up on their own. You know, you're responsible for your healing journey and what you do with your time and talent.
Felipe has a question. As you decolonize yourself, how do you deal with that coming into conflict with your workplace culture?
Oh, a workplace culture that's decolonized. Yeah, well, it was hard to more decolonized with the family than it was with workplace, because I worked with a lot of Anglo middle-aged men, and they're not colonized in any way. You know, have their nuclear family, right? It was like husband, wife, kids. They saw their parents, you know, on the holidays and stuff. So that was something I hadn't experienced. But if you're experiencing that at work, does that mean that you're surrounded by a lot of Latinos and that there's this expectation that you have to remain colonized? Is that what I'm understanding?
I'm not sure. Felipe, do you want to join us and ask your question? If you request to join, we can allow you here. He means how white supremacy affects you at work.
Oh, unfortunately, in the political climate that we're in, some of the women that have come to me are, you know, they're experiencing these situations where they're receiving some of the, I don't want to tie it to a certain political party, by, you know, mostly occupied by middle-aged white men, Christian middle-aged white men, right? Tending to oppress in a passive-aggressive way, you know, towards Latinos. Right. And because of, you know, the narrative that this administration has put out about Latinos and everything that even our Black brothers and sisters are having to face right now. So I would highly encourage you to look at two things. Number one, is this a cultural issue? Is this something culturally acceptable? Meaning, is this, you know, something that people say all the time and nobody bats an eye at it, and you're offended because you happen to be in that party of people that they are, you know, projecting their negativity on? If it's as a culture, then that means you can't rely on like human resources or the diversity and inclusion manager to step in, right? If this is just a person or a group of people, then it's not a cultural situation. Then you can rely on human resources and diversity and inclusion to step in and have diversity and inclusion training, have sensitivity training, or even address a grievance. It's perfectly okay for you to call out to attention. Like Brene Brown says, shame cannot withstand the light. Shame only lives in the darkness. So the more you don't talk about it, the more you don't bring it up, the more you act like it doesn't bother you, it's going to continue to fester and continue to happen. So you have to call it out, bring it to light, and let them feel the consequences of that experience, if and only if it's not a cultural dynamic. If it's just this is how everyone there talks and this is just normal, then you might need to consider a job change.
That's great advice. Gary's asking, do you have a podcast?
I don't, but I have received, so I can't even tell you, Indira, so many requests of people asking me to create one. So in fact, tomorrow I'm interviewing a producer who could, so if I find the right producer who will take care of and manage the production quality of a podcast, I might launch one next year.
That's great. We're looking forward to it. And in a way, your Instagram stories are your podcast. You go in there a lot.
I do. Yeah. Any other questions?
How
much time do we have left?
We have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
So we have one more question here. Lucy asked, I'm currently in a position where I know I am doing way more work and have gotten more responsibilities added to my role, and my paycheck does not reflect that. What advice do you have in having conversations about getting a raise or regarding this situation?
Oh, absolutely. So what's so great is that there's a ton of free resources on LinkedIn. You know, Lucy, you know how there's LinkedIn, they try to get you to pay for like a membership or whatever. I've never paid for a membership on LinkedIn, and it's elevated my career up to this point. So if you go on LinkedIn and you go to your profile, okay, scroll down to the center there. It's like a dashboard. And there's one that says salary data. I think it's called salary something, but you can actually look up salaries for a particular role in a demographic. Like you can put like administrative assistant, Chicago, Illinois, human resources generalist, Los Angeles, California. And you can get some data on what people are being paid. So if you compile what you have, the jobs that you're doing, are you doing the job of an analyst and then also as an assistant and possibly a processor? And if you look at all of those roles and look up the salary, the market current condition of the salary for that role, you can see like I'm doing the work of 3 people combining this amount of salary, and then have a career conversation with your boss to say like, I'm feeling underappreciated, I'm undervalued, and I did some research and here's what I found. So in order for me to feel valued and to continue to contribute at the pace that I have been, I'd like to know that my contribution is being properly compensated, and be able to share. Like, you're not looking for all 3 salaries combined, but you're like, what are you looking for? Find out a number that you're comfortable with and try to ask them what needs to happen in order to get me from where I am to where I'd like to be. What needs to happen? And
yeah, to be honest, like there are different resources for that. So there's linked salary also goes to like, if you go to like the postings for jobs, it tells you this is how much is the range for this position. You can go down to like the company level, and like each level, like mine is pretty accurate to what I'm making and what the average is for like my company. It's accurate. There's another resource called levels.fyi. Where you also have like the dates where this information was posted, because like maybe this year people are getting paid more than whoever joined last year, and some resources like Glassdoor, they just aggregate all the data, and it's like limited in that sense.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Hire.com, it's also doing some assessments on like people who are hired through the platform. They post their salaries as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I saw some people also PayScale, Glassdoor, all great places that you can. Indeed has a career salary calculator. So yeah, these are great. This is great access to free information that you can use to negotiate your salary for. Are we done?
Yes, I don't see any more questions. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for being a part of this and for chiming in. I really, really appreciate it. Again, you can always find me on my website or on Instagram, and I'm happy to connect with anyone that would like to connect.